Good day everyone! Welcome to Ate Wes Vlog. And my name is Loris Valdez, so you can call me Ate Wes for short. And are you familiar with the game table tennis? If you're not, do not worry because I'm here to share to you my knowledge about it. So let's get started. In this video, we will talk about its history, facilities and equipments, and rules and regulations. Now, are you ready to explore the world of table tennis? Okay, before we start, which do you think is the other term for the word table tennis? Is it A, pong pong, or B, ping pong? If your answer is B, well, that's correct. Table tennis, also known as ping pong, is one of the most popular games in the world.
It is a ball game similar in principle to lawn tennis and played on flat table divided into two equal courts by a net that is fixed across its width at the middle, or its ball should bounce on the opponent's table side and the opponent must return the ball to the player in order to continue the game. The points will be given if the opponent doesn't return the ball. And when it comes to its history, it is said that in the 12th century AD, the game of table tennis probably descended from the game of royal tennis, which was also played in the medieval era. During 1880s, some sources claimed that the sport was once known as indoor tennis and was played in the early 1880s by British Army officers stationed in India and South Africa. So here, they use cigar box lids as paddles, round wine bottle corks as balls, and books for an improvised net.
So can you imagine how these officers became so creative?
In the same year, the game became fashionable among the upper classes in England. In 1890, the earliest existing evidence of the table tennis games is a set made by David Foster, patented in England, which include table versions of lawn tennis, cricket, and football. So a year after, John Jacques of London introduced their Gossamer game, which used drum-type paddle, a 50mm web-wrap cork ball, and a 30cm high net.
However, neither of these action games was successful because of the ineffective ball. So the ball, or the rubber ball rather, had to weld when it bounced, while the cork had to work when it bounced. So improvements were made to the equipment during the 1900s until the celluloid ball was introduced to the game. Jacques then revised the older Gossamer game but changed the name to Gossamer or ping pong. Can you hear this sound? Okay. So just like what you have heard, the name ping pong is derived from the sound the ball produced when it was hit by a rubber paddle. The high-pitched sound suggested ping and the lower pitch is pong.
Then, the Parker brothers introduced ping pong game to the United States. With the slow cost of the equipment, the game continued to grow in popularity and the first tournament was held in 1902. In 1921, the Table Tennis Association was founded in England and less than 10 years later, the first World Championships also took place there. Over time, the sport spread to other parts of the world. In the Far Eastern countries such as China, it is called ping pong, while in other countries similar terms in the native language are used. The 1950s rolled around and the other innovations were made. As an example, a sponge layer was added to the paddles over the rubber, making the paddles lighter and easier for the players to use. And finally, after being around for more than a century, table tennis was included as an Olympic sport in 1988. In the latter part of the year 2000, the international body governing the rules of table tennis introduced more changes. They decided to increase the size of the plastic ball used in tournament from 38 millimeters to 40 millimeters. This was an attempt to slow the game down a little. They also made changes to the way the game was scored. Now, using as opposed to the 21 points which makes each set fast and exciting for the players and spectators, table tennis is governed by the ITTF or the International Table Tennis Federation, and it was founded in 1926. ITTF currently include 217 members associations. The table tennis official rules are specified in the ITTF book. Since 1988, table tennis has been an Olympic sport with several event categories, in particular from 1988 until 2004. These were men's singles, women's single, men's doubles, and women's double. Since 2008, a team event has been played instead of the double. And lastly, in 2007, the governance for the table tennis for persons with disability was transferred from the International Paralympics Committee to the ITTF.
Well, that is such a history. Now I have a trivia. Do you know that when you turn 50, it is better for your health to play table tennis than lawn tennis? Why? Is it because standard tennis requires a lot of running around, but table tennis does not require the same level of athleticism, or it can improve your reaction speed and does not work up a sweat when you play a fast tempo. So keep in mind that when you turn in your 50, you should play table tennis. Now that you already know the history of the table tennis, why not we should talk about its facilities and equipment. Table tennis become more and more popular today. Even those who have no clue in playing it can be easily taught because rules are not that difficult to understand, okay? So compared to the most other sports, the size requirements for table tennis are relatively small. And therefore, you can play the game almost anywhere.
Ideally, table tennis should be played in a dedicated space with appropriate facilities permanently available. However, that's not always possible. And the size of the playing area can be distinguished depending on the type of the play you'll do. An instance to this is when you want to play table tennis at home. You could use any space that will accommodate a table tennis with a 9 feet long and a 5 feet wide. But in Olympic Games, it is 14 meters by 7 meters. Or for local tournaments, it is 9 meters by 5 meters.
For the table tennis equipment, there are 4 main equipment that is used or that are used to play the table tennis. So it includes the ball, the racket or the paddle, the table, and the net.
The first one is the ball. The ball has to have a spherical shape with a diameter of 40 mm and should weigh about 2.7 grams. The ball should be made of similar plastic material or celluloid and shall be orange or white and matte. And the second one is the racket or the paddle. The racket or the paddle can have any shape, size, or even weight, but the blade has to be rigid and flat. It is said that a minimum of 85% of the blade shall have natural wood in its thickness. The side of the blade designed for hitting the ball would be covered with either ordinary pimpled rubber or pimpled outward, thereby giving them a thickness of more than 2 millimeters. In addition, the covering materials used on each side of the blade shall be matte, black on one side, and any other approved colors on the other side. In the play, if the player strikes the ball using a side of the blade that does that does not have a surface which complies with the requirements as stated by the rules, then his opponent shall be offered a point. So the third one is we have the table. The table should have rectangular surface with a 152.5 centimeters in width and 274 centimeters in length. It should be supported to ensure that its upper surface, also known as the playing surface, would lie in a horizontal plane of about 76 centimeters above the floor. The playing surface has to be matte and dark colored, with a white line of about 2 centimeters wide along the edges. So the lines that are along the 200 centimeters sides or edges would be known as sidelines. In the case of doubles, the playing surface would be broken into halves through the aid of a white line, which is 3 millimeters wide, as the sideline would be called the center line. The fourth one is the net. The net is one that divides the opponent and the player side. It is light in texture and stretched across the center of the table and attached to the outside by vertical standards. The height of the net should be 15.25 centimeters above the table.
Now that we know the basic equipments and the facilities of the game table tennis, let us now proceed to its rules and regulations.
For number 1, it is basically that games are played to 11 points. So it must be won by 2 points. A match is generally the best 3 of 5 games. For number 2, alternate serves every 2 points. So each side of the table alternates serving 2 points at a time. And the only exception, after tied, Alten, or the deuce, service alternates at every point.
Can you lose a serve in ping pong? Yes, because there is no separate rules for serving on game point.
For number 3, toss the ball straight up when serving. How do you serve the ball in ping pong? Hold the ball in your open palm behind your end of the table and toss at least 6 inches straight up and strike it on the way down. So it must hit your side of the table and then the other side. Take note that once the ball leaves the server's hands, it is in play, and so counts as the receiver's point if the ball is missed or mishit. For number 4, the serve can land anywhere in singles. So there is no restriction on where the ball lands on your side or your opponent's sides of the table. It can bounce 2 or more times on your opponent's side, but if so, that's your point. Bounce over the side or even hit the edge. For number 5, doubles, serves must go right court to right court. The serve must bounce in the server's right court and the receiver's right court. And take note again that landing on the center line is fair. Doubles partners switch places after their team serves twice. For number 6, a serve that touches the net on the way over is a let. Can the ball hit the net in ping pong? Yes. During a rally, if it touches the top of the net and then otherwise lands as a legitimate hit, but not when serving. If a serve ball hits the net on the way over and otherwise legally bounced in play, it's a let serve and is done over. There is no limit on how many times this can happen. For number 7, alternate hitting in a doubles rally. Doubles partners must alternate hitting balls in a rally, no matter where the ball lands on the table. For number 8, volleys are not allowed. Can you hit the ball before it bounces in ping pong? No. In regular tennis, you may volley the ball. Volley means hitting the ball before it bounces on the side of the net. But in table tennis, this results in a point for your opponent. A reminder that when your opponent hits a ball that sails over your end of the table without touching it and then hits you or your paddle, that is still your point. For number 9, if your hit bounces back over the net by itself, it is your point. So if you hit the ball in a rally or on a serve and it bounces back over the net after hitting your opponent's side of the table due to extreme spin without your opponent touching it, that is your point. Touching the ball with your paddle hand is allowed. So what happens if the ball hits your finger or hand during a ping pong rally? If the ball touches your paddle hand and otherwise result in a legal hit, there is no rule violation and the play shall continue as normal. So your paddle hand includes all fingers and hand area below the wrist. But what if the ball touches a player's body anywhere else during a ping pong rally? You may not touch the ball with your non-paddle hand for any reason. It will result in a point for your opponent. But if your opponent's hit sails over your side of the table without touching it and hits any part of you or your paddle, that is still your point. For number 11, you may not touch the table with your non-paddle hand. You may touch the ball or the table with your paddle hand after reaching in to return a short serve, for example, or other parts of your body. And take note, if the table moves at all from your touching it during a rally, that is your opponent's point. For number 12, an edge ball bouncing off the horizontal table top surface is good. An otherwise legal serve or hit may contact the top edge of the horizontal table top surface and be counted as valid, even if it bounces sidewise. So the vertical sides of the table are not part of the legal playing surface. And lastly, for number 13, honor system applies to disagreements. If no referee is present during a match and the players disagree on a certain call, the honor system applies and the player should find a way to agree or play the point over.
Okay, now that we discussed the last part, it is time for me to end this video. But to conclude this, ping pong carries the tradition of fierce but a fair play. And I just want to say that when playing, we must have fun in doing this. Okay, so that's it. I hope that you have gained something from what we talked about today about the table tennis. And see you in my next vlog.